The desert battlefield burned beneath the twin suns as explosions shook the cracked red earth. Dust rose like smoke around Corporal Jaden Hart as he ducked behind a metal wreck. Plasma fire hissed overhead. He couldn't see the enemy clearly, but he knew they were close. His suit's alarm beeped shield down to 30%. He cursed it under his breath and scanned the ruins for any sign of backup. Instead, he saw her, the alien warrior. She stood on the opposite side of the broken archway, holding a plasma blade, her violet skin dusted with ash. Her 4 golden eyes locked onto his. She didn't raise her weapon. Jaden didn't either. They just stared, breathing heavily. They had fought each other 3 times before. Each time, both walked away alive. Not friends, not allies, but not killers either. Heard the screech of drones above. Enemy recon units. They were both out of cover now, exposed to the machines. Jaden raised his rifle, but the weapon jammed. She tilted her head, watching. The drone fired. She moved before he could blink, hurling a piece of broken metal that struck the drone mid-air and sent it spinning to the ground in flames. Jaden didn't understand it. She should have let him die. He was her enemy. They were on opposite sides of the war. He had no value to her, and yet she stepped forward, gesturing with her hand for him to move. He did, slowly, stunned, confused, unsure if it was a trap or something else. Another blast rang out, and the structure behind them crumbled. They ran together without a word, diving behind a downed carrier. For a few seconds, there was nothing but silence between them. The noise of the battle was distant. Here, blocked by walls of debris. Jaden turned to her, opening his mouth to ask why. She raised a hand, listening. Then he heard it too. A beeping sound. His heart dropped. It was a grenade. One of theirs. Probably fell during the last blast. It was only a few feet away. Too close. Jaden went to dive, to throw it, but her hand slammed into his chest and pushed him down hard. Her body landed over his like a shield, arms tight around him. The explosion came an instant later, and everything turned white. His ears rang. The world tilted. He was still alive. She wasn't moving. Jaden blinked, confused, then realized her body had taken most of the blast. Her armor was scorched, cracked. One of her arms was bleeding badly. She coughed, eyes fluttering. She tried to speak, but her voice was weak and broken. He pulled her off him gently, holding her shoulders. "Why?" he asked, not knowing what else to say. She looked at him, a strange softness in her eyes now. "I don't know," she whispered, "but I couldn't let you die." Her fingers brushed his arm before she passed out. Jaden's breath caught. This wasn't right. She was a soldier from the enemy side, a killer, a threat, but she had saved his life at the cost of her own safety. That meant something. He checked her pulse, faint but still there. He had to act. He grabbed her blade, slung her over his shoulder, and started running toward the human fallback zone. The sky was darkening with smoke as more dropships landed in the distance. He avoided the patrols, moving through rubble, keeping low. If his squad found out he was carrying an alien warrior, they'd shoot her on sight. Maybe even him too. But he didn't stop. Not after what she did. Jaden reached a shattered bunker, hidden beneath rock and twisted cables. He laid her down on a soft patch of earth inside. She was still unconscious. He used his last medpack on her wounds, sealing the deep cuts as best he could. Her body twitched, but she didn't wake. He stayed by her side, guarding her, staring at her strange alien face as the storm outside grew louder. The moment she had thrown herself over him played in his mind again and again. She had no reason to do it, nothing to gain. She should have let him die and ended one more enemy. But she didn't, and now he owed her more than his life. He owed her a chance to survive. He didn't sleep that night. The battle moved further away, but he didn't care. His squad would think he was dead. Maybe that was good. Maybe it was the only way to protect her. Tomorrow he'd find a new place to hide, somewhere safe, somewhere away from this war. She stared at Dawn, her voice barely a whisper. "You stayed?" she asked. He nodded. She closed her eyes and smiled slightly. "You're a strange human," she said. "But I think I was right about you." Asterisk, her name was Kelleth. That's all she told him when she woke up. She sat propped against the bunker wall, her wounds still raw, her armor half destroyed. Jaden brought her water from a melted ration pack. She didn't thank him, but she didn't stab him either. That was progress. He watched her carefully as she drank. Her hands shook, her breathing slow and heavy. Jaden had fought her people for 2 years. He'd seen them rip through squads like shadows. But this Kelleth, wasn't like the others. Not anymore. "What happens now?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes shifted, scanning the shadows of the shelter. She was still a soldier. Still dangerous. Jaden didn't forget that. But her gaze held no hate. Not yet. Only wariness. "You tell your kind," she said at last, "and they'll kill me. You hide me, and they'll kill you." Her voice was calm, cold, like she had already accepted death. Jaden didn't speak. He just tightened his grip on the rifle and looked at the broken bunker door. He knew she was right. His orders were clear. Any enemy survivor must be executed or handed over. No exceptions. But something about this situation made him feel like those rules didn't matter. Not after what she did. Not after she saved him. A tremor shook the ground. Both of them tensed. Jaden peered through a crack in the ceiling. Dropships were circling above. Searchlights swept the wasteland. "They're looking for you," Kelleth said. "And me." Jaden nodded slowly. The enemy wanted her back. His side wanted him back. But neither side wanted them together. He had a choice now. Turn her in and follow orders. Or take a risk and run with her. Maybe die together. Maybe survive. But one thing was clear. They couldn't stay here. Kelleth tried to stand. Her legs buckled. Jaden caught her before she hit the ground. She looked at him, surprised again by his actions. "I don't understand you," she said. "You were my enemy." Jaden helped her sit back down gently. "And you were mine," he said. "But something's different now." He didn't explain further. He couldn't. He barely understood it himself. All he knew was that if she had let the grenade kill him, none of this would be happening. He spent the next hour patching her wounds again, this time using scraps from both their gear. She didn't complain. She didn't flinch. Only watched him quietly, her expression unreadable. Her heartbeat steady but shallow. When the sun started to rise again, Jaden moved to the edge of the bunker. Smoke painted the sky in long gray streaks. Fires still burned in the distance, but the searchlights were gone. The battle had moved east. They had a chance now, but only if they moved quickly. "We need to find shelter beyond the ridge." "Side. There's an old station. If it's still intact, we can hide there." Kelleth didn't argue. She simply nodded. Jaden helped her to her feet. She leaned on him heavily, but her grip on his shoulder was strong. They walked together through the rubble, their steps uneven, silent except for the crunch of ash under their boots. Jaden kept his rifle low, not ready to fire, not at her, but ready in case others found them. Twice they had to hide from patrols. Once from a drone. Jaden threw his heat signature disruptor over her body while they lay pressed under shattered metal. Her face was close to his, her breath warm against his cheek. Neither of them moved. When it was safe, they kept going, step by step. Every time Khalith stumbled, Jaden caught her. Every time he stopped to rest, she never spoke a word. But her hand stayed close to her blade. She still didn't trust him completely. And he didn't blame her. At last they reached the ridge. The old comms tower stood broken, but still holding its shape. Jaden checked inside. The place was empty. No signals, no power. But it was shelter. It was enough. He helped her inside and lowered her to the floor gently. She looked up at him, eyes blinking slowly. "Why are you doing this?" she asked again. "Why risk everything for me?" He didn't have a perfect answer. He just sat beside her and leaned his head back against the cold metal wall. "Because you didn't let me die," he said. "And I don't forget something like that." She stared at him, then closed her eyes. A strange peace came over her face. For now, they were safe. But the war was far from over. Jaden crawled to the edge of the tunnel and peeked through a crack in the bulkhead. He saw boots. 6 soldiers, human, armed and armored. Their rifles pointed forward, scanners in hand. They were sweeping the corridors methodically. He ducked back and motioned to Khalith. She nodded without speaking. They both knew what this meant. If these soldiers found them, they would separate them, question him, kill her. No one would ask why he kept her alive. No one would care. Jaden pulled her toward the far end of the chamber. He remembered a utility shaft there. Too small for a full squad to follow. Maybe just big enough for 2 people to crawl through. Khalith limped behind him, biting back pain. They reached the shaft and opened the hatch. Dust spilled out. The tunnel inside was barely wide enough to move. Jaden helped her in first, then slid in after, pulling the hatch closed behind him. The air inside was thick and stale. They crawled for 20 minutes in silence. Jaden's back burned. His knees scraped metal. He heard nothing but their own breaths and the creak of the old tunnel walls. Finally, they reached a small chamber with a broken fan and an old ladder leading up. Jaden climbed first. The hatch above was sealed tight with rust. He slammed it twice, then a third time. It cracked open, light poured in. He pushed it up and pulled himself out. Then he reached down and helped Khalith out of the shaft. They were inside another abandoned section of the old transport hub. This one looked untouched. Tables overturned, maps scattered. A dead console blinked red in the corner. Jaden pulled Khalith behind a pillar and listened. Boots echoed in the distance. The soldiers were still searching. A voice came through the hallway. "Hart, you alive?" It was his sergeant. Familiar, close, too close. Jaden froze. Khalith looked at him, eyes narrow. She knew he had a choice. He moved toward the sound, rifle in hand, but didn't shout back. His fingers trembled. He hadn't seen his squad in days. They probably thought he was dead. But if he answered now, everything would change. Khalith stepped forward and whispered, "You should go to them." "You don't owe me more." Jaden stared at her. She meant it. She was letting him walk away. But he didn't move. He stepped back and shook his head. "I made my choice the moment you jumped on that grenade," he said. "I'm not leaving you." She stared at him like she couldn't believe it. Then her gaze softened. And for the first time, her shoulders relaxed. The voices grew louder. Jaden had to act fast. He moved to the console and ripped the wires from its core. Sparks flew. The hallway lights flickered. Then the system died completely. Darkness filled the tunnel. Confusion would follow. He grabbed Khalith's hand and pulled her into a supply room. Inside were crates of old armor, ration packs and dust-covered gear. He shoved one of the crates aside, revealing another shaft under a floor panel. Their last exit. He helped her climb down, then followed, closing the panel behind them. The room above filled with voices and boots. Soldiers searched every corner. One of them shouted, "Clear! He's not here!" The sound of footsteps faded. Again, Jaden and Kelleth sat in the narrow crawl space, catching their breath. Her forehead touched his shoulder lightly. She was exhausted. He was too. But they were alive, together, still running, still hunted. After an hour, they moved again. This time into a wide tunnel that led toward the edge of the transport zone. Jaden found a ventilation map burned into the wall. A possible exit was marked beyond the coolant tanks. They walked slowly now. Kelleth leaned on him more than before. Her steps uneven, her face pale. Jaden tightened his grip on her waist and kept going. He wouldn't let her fall. When they reached the final gate, Kelleth stopped. Her eyes scanned the area. "This is where we part," she said. Jaden frowned. "What do you mean?" She looked at him, firm now. "If I stay with you, they'll never stop chasing you. I must go my own way." Jaden grabbed her hand. "You think I care?" he asked. "You saved me. I'm staying with you." Her eyes widened. She didn't speak for several seconds. Then she leaned forward and placed her forehead gently against his. "You're not like the others," she said. "Maybe we both stopped being what we were meant to be the moment we chose each other." The final exit tunnel was long, damp, and twisted through broken steel and collapsed vents. Jaden moved ahead, checking corners, his rifle held close. Kelleth followed behind him, her steps slower but steady. They didn't speak now. Every word had already been said. They passed. Old bones and scorched helmets. This place had seen fighting once. Long ago. Maybe this was how every war ended, bodies forgotten in dust. Stories buried in tunnels. Enemies walking side by side when no one was left to order them apart. Jaden stopped at a locked blast door. The map on the wall said the exit lay beyond. But the keypad was smashed. No power, no way to open it with normal means. He looked at Kelleth. She reached down and pulled 2 wires from a nearby junction box. She crossed the wires, sending a short spark through the system. The door creaked. Rust fell from the hinges. It opened halfway, enough for them to slide through. Jaden stepped out first, scanning the outside. They were in the valley. The wind was dry. Smoke drifted on the horizon. But for now, no drones. No soldiers. Just broken hills and a path that led away from the war. Kelleth came beside him. Her body swayed from exhaustion, but she stood tall. She looked across the land and said, "We are not done yet." Jaden nodded. "We find a transport, we disappear. No one needs to know where we go." But fate wasn't listening. A drone spotted them minutes later. It screamed as it flew overhead. A red light flashed beneath its belly. Jaden raised his rifle and fired. One shot, clean. The drone dropped into the dirt in pieces. Too late. It had already sent a signal. Jaden and Kelleth ran across the valley. Their legs pounded the cracked soil. Every step brought pain. But they didn't stop. Not when the sky above split open with the sound of engines. Not when the shadows of drop pods fell across the hills. Behind a jagged rock wall, they crouched and loaded their last weapons. Jaden counted 2 full mags. Kelleth had 1 charged blade. No grenades. No backup. No mercy waiting from either side. She looked at him. "You don't have to fight. If they capture you, maybe they'll forgive you. You're still one of them." Jaden shook his head. "Not anymore. I left the moment you saved me. I fight with you." The first wave came fast. 3 soldiers in dark armor. Jaden shot one in the chest and dropped another with a shot to the knee. Kelleth leapt over the rocks and slashed the last one down before he could scream. More came. Dozens. The hillside lit with plasma fire. Jaden reloaded and fired until his rifle burned hot. Keleth fought like a storm, blade spinning, her body moving faster than his eyes could track. She fell twice, got up twice. Still fighting, Jaden was hit in the leg. He dropped to one knee. Blood spilled down his armor. Keleth moved to cover him, her blade slashing through the smoke. She took a hit to the shoulder and staggered. He reached up and pulled her back to the wall. They sat beside each other, breaths shaking, eyes locked. The last wave was coming, too many, too fast. Jaden grabbed her hand and held it tight. "If we go together," he said. She nodded, eyes full of fire. Then the sky changed. A ship roared above them. Not human, not hers. Something else. It dropped flares and blasted the enemy lines with sonic bursts. The soldiers scattered, confused, falling back. The ship landed hard in the valley, its doors opening wide. Jaden pulled Keleth to her feet. They ran together toward the ship. A voice called out in both their languages. Refugees of war, bored now. No flags, no questions. Just life. Inside, others waited. Mixed races, broken armor. Burned faces, all survivors. All outcasts. Jaden and Keleth collapsed into the seats. The doors closed. The engine screamed. The ground fell away beneath them. She looked at him. "Is this freedom?" she asked. He stared out the window as the battlefield shrank into a blur. "No," he said. "This is the beginning of something better." As the ship vanished into the sky, they sat together, soldier and enemy, survivor and shield, not bound by orders or flags anymore. Only by a choice neither of them would ever regret. Their war had ended not with a kill, but with a hand extended in the fire. Jaden woke to the sound of wind scraping against metal. The Kun station was cold and dark. He sat up, muscles aching, hand on his rifle. Keleth was still asleep beside him, her chest rising slowly, her arm wrapped in a makeshift bandage made. From his old uniform, she had not tried to kill him during the night. That surprised him more than it should have. He checked the entrance and the perimeter. No movement, no patrols. Just silence. The war was still out there, but this small corner of the world was quiet for now. He boiled a ration bar and made it soft enough to chew. When she opened her eyes, he offered her half. She stared at it for a moment before taking it slowly, like she was expecting a trap. She chewed quietly, her gaze fixed on the broken wall. "You don't have to act like a prisoner," Jaden said. "I'm not your guard." She gave him a dry look, but said nothing. Then she took a deep breath and leaned her head back against the wall. "You are strange, human," she said, "but not cruel." "That is rare." Jaden looked at her, unsure how to respond. Compliments from enemy soldiers were not in any training manual. He chose to say nothing and started checking the rifle's charge level. It was still low. They'd need a new power cell soon. The sky outside was darker than before. Storms brewed over the ridge, thick with static clouds. The weather here didn't care who won the war. It buried bodies just the same. Jaden sealed the door tighter and secured the cracks. Keleth pulled a panel from the wall and began rewiring the broken console. Her hands were weak but skilled. "I can boost the local signal," she said. "If we're lucky, we can hear enemy chatter and avoid them." Jaden nodded. He didn't ask how she knew their tech. She just did. The signal crackled alive. Voices, scrambled and sharp, filled the space. Enemy units were regrouping. They spoke of a human deserter. Someone who went missing with a wounded alien female. Jaden's stomach turned. They were being hunted. He turned to Keleth. She already knew. "They think you betrayed them," he said. She didn't reply. Her jaw clenched, her fingers curling slightly against the floor. She had not expected this. Saving him had cost her everything. "We can't stay here long," Jaden said. "They'll sweep this sector in a day." Keleth nodded once. "Then, we move before they do." She pushed herself to stand, her strength returning slowly. She looked smaller now, stripped of command, of orders, of everything that made her a warrior before. Jaden packed the supplies while Keleth strapped pieces of broken armor to her legs and chest. It didn't match, it didn't shine, but it would hold. They moved as soon as the wind cleared, quiet and fast. Two shadows in the burnt world. They headed toward the ruins of an old transport hub. Jaden remembered it from early in the war. It had been a safe zone once. Now it was just bones and silence. But underneath, there were tunnels. He was sure of it. Tunnels could hide them. The ground cracked under their steps. The smell of ash and melted steel clung to everything. Jaden moved first, clearing corners. Keleth followed close, her blade in hand. They didn't speak much, but they didn't need to. Their silence had changed. It was no longer cold. They found the entrance buried under debris. Jaden cleared it with a broken pipe and used his shoulder to push the door open. Inside was darkness and stale air. He clicked on his visor light and scanned the hallway. No heat signatures. Safe for now. Keleth lowered herself to the floor, breathing hard. She was still not fully healed. Jaden knelt beside her, checked her arm again, and changed the bandage. She didn't flinch this time. She just watched him with tired, unreadable eyes. "I didn't plan for this," she said suddenly. "I was raised to fight, not to feel. But I feel something now. I don't know if it's weakness or something else." Jaden looked at her and said nothing. He let her speak, let her release what had been buried. "I've killed humans before," she said, "but I never saw their faces. Not until you. Not until you looked at me like I was more than a weapon." Jaden lowered his head. He knew what that felt like. To be trained for war, but never prepared for humanity. A sound broke the moment. Footsteps above. Fast and heavy. Patrol. Jaden moved to the stairwell, held up a hand. Keleth stood beside him, blade in hand. They waited together. Breaths held. The steps faded away. They were not found. Not yet. Jaden looked at her, then back at the tunnel ahead. "Come on," he said. "We move deeper. This place won't hide us forever." Keleth nodded and followed him into the dark, where the war still echoed beyond the walls. The tunnels were old, cracked, and carved long before the war began. They smelled like rust and dust. Jaden led the way, light on his weapon flickering against walls covered in faded markings. Keleth followed behind, steps slower than his but steady. They didn't talk. Each corner could hold danger, patrols, drones, traps. Their silence wasn't fear, it was survival. Every breath was measured, every footstep placed with care. The air was tight, thick with forgotten smoke. Jaden's map showed an old maintenance room deeper in. It wasn't marked on any current files, that made it perfect. If no one remembered it, no one would search it. They moved faster now, hunger forgotten, pain ignored. Keleth touched the wall as they passed. Her fingers brushed over scorched paint and cracked steel. "My people built this long ago," she said softly. "Before the fighting, before the hate." Jaden didn't respond. He just kept walking forward. They reached the door after another hour. Jaden used a bypass key from his old mission kit. The lock sparked and clicked open. Inside was darkness and silence. He entered first, scanning the room. It was clear, no movement. No traps, just quiet. Keleth stepped in and sat against a low wall. She closed her eyes and breathed slowly. Her skin, once bright and vibrant, looked dim now. Her energy was fading again. Jaden tossed her a water pack and crouched beside her. He offered her a stim capsule, the last one he had. She stared at it before taking it from his palm. Her hand brushed his, just a touch, but it lingered for a second too long. Jaden felt something shift between them again. "You don't have to stay," she said. "You've given enough." Jaden looked at her, surprised. She meant it. She was giving him a way out. But he shook his head and leaned back beside her. "I'm not leaving you," he said. "Not now. Not after everything." Caliph smiled faintly, but her eyes didn't leave the floor. "Then we'll die together if we must." Jaden didn't answer that. He didn't want to think about dying. Not yet. Not while they still had time. Suddenly, the tunnel lights outside flickered. Jaden stood up, rifle raised. Caliph gripped her blade. The silence had changed. Footsteps. Not one pair. Many. Slow and careful. Someone was coming. He turned off the lights and pulled her behind a console. They crouched low, bodies pressed close. The air grew still. Then came the voices. Harsh, mechanical, not human. Drones, scanning, searching, moving closer with each echo. One of them entered the room. Its light swept over the floor. Caliph gripped his arm tightly. Jaden held his breath. The drone stepped further in. A whir. A click. Then it paused, turned, and moved back out. They waited in silence until the sounds vanished completely. Jaden exhaled slowly. Caliph's grip loosened. "They're tracking energy pulses," she whispered. "If we use comms again, they'll find us." Jaden nodded. That meant no signals. No messages. Just hiding. He checked their supplies again. Food was low. Power cells nearly drained. They couldn't stay hidden much longer. If the drones returned with full squads, they have no chance. Jaden sat down beside her, head heavy with choices. "Why did you save me back then?" he asked quietly. "Back when the grenade dropped?" Caliph was silent for a while. Then she answered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because in that moment, you looked like someone worth saving." Jaden didn't move. Her words sank. Deep, simple, honest. He turned his head slowly and met her eyes. "And now?" he asked. She stared back at him for a long time. Then she answered with a single word, "Yes." Jaden looked down. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But he knew one thing now. She wasn't just an enemy anymore. She was someone who had chosen to shield him with her body. And now, without words, he had chosen to shield her back. That night, they took turns keeping watch. No more drones came. No more voices. Just quiet breathing and the hum of old wires in the walls. In that stillness, something stronger than orders began to grow. By morning, Jaden woke to the sound of movement outside again. But this time, it was heavier. Marching boots, not drones. Soldiers, human ones. And they were getting closer with each step.